we rise with love in our eyes. Talk of changes, we can change it. We'll stay on our feet. We'll stay on our feet. Sweet grass we burn, four corners to hurl. Light the fires, burning brighter. We'll stay on our feet. We'll stay on our feet. Just one earth, water's life, water's life. Just one earth, water's life, water's life. Gather in pride, feel the strength in the air. Hear the answers in the winter. We'll stay on our feet. We'll stay on our feet. Just one earth, water's life, water's life. Just one earth, water's life, water's life.
Hey, go check out Miracle Doll because they are heavily underrated. Like straight up. Like honestly, I know that kind of tearing up a little bit. That song is very beautiful. It just whenever we hear about like musicians that are indigenous, we think of like bands like Los Crudos and A Tribe Called Red. And those are really good indigenous bands and groups, but like we don't hear about them enough. So I'm trying to, shed light on some that are, not necessarily exposed and out there. I actually forgot to put a link in the description. I will put one actually after the stream, and it's really good. It's a really good song. They're called they're called I'm sorry, I just woke up. They're called Miracle Doll. So they're really good. They're really friggin' good. So today I wanted to talk about the Indigenous Vote, and this is something that we highlighted on yesterday, but we couldn't necessarily get into because my internet crashed, and the CIA or the FBI must have intercepted my 5G internet, and it crashed. Thank you guys, appreciate it. And it was specifically when I was talking about a specific thing about how if Joe Biden were to win, Joe Biden wouldn't be able to undo the settler colonial system that is white supremacy, cis hetero patriarchy, and basically the concept of just overall, just like fascist organizing. And that's basically what I was trying to get at here, is pretty much that as a concept. So I'm trying to basically also highlight the fact that, even if Biden were to win, it's not necessarily a win for us. I mean, and it's like, people say that voting for Biden means that it's easier for us to basically overthrow the government, and I don't know. It's a little silly to think that, because for one, like, let's take a look at this real quick. Woo! Let's sing a song real quick. Okay, that's getting annoying already. But this line, holy shit, right? It's a really long line, and it's like, it doesn't stop. It straight up doesn't stop, and that's not the only factor here, right? This is not the only factor that we have in terms of looking at like a fucking a voting suppression. Like, we're talking about redlining, for that matter. In terms of like cities, we're talking about. I mean, this isn't a big city like Los Angeles. This isn't a big city where I'm from. Even this isn't a big city where this isn't a big city like fucking like Atlanta. This isn't a big city like San Francisco, or fucking New York City, where like redlining is huge, and they segregate you from the suburbs, and like your vote doesn't matter based on like how your race is done. I think ContraPoints, people give ContraPoints so much shit. I mean, but I think ContraPoints actually did a really good video based on what redlining was. I think she did a really good job on that. And she did it based on her own neighborhood in Baltimore. I think, to her own credit, I give her props to that. So I really honestly think that voting is, vote, and here's another thing I want to highlight real quick, and that is, people in the comment section in my previous video, in my previous stream, have said that voting is necessary, in fact, in a democracy, and I agree with them. I fully agree with them on that point. I fully agree. In every absolute case, we should vote for everything. Here's the problem, however, right? Especially in a justified hierarchy, we should vote, right? In Robert's Rule of Order, right? We should vote, which is something that the IWW pertains to do, right? Here's the thing, however, the problem is that this isn't necessarily the case with the United States government, and I would necessarily argue. I'm trying to remember my thought, and I'm beating around the bush because I had a thought and I literally just forgot it. Shit, damn, I should have took better notes. Anyway, but let's get to the reading material. Anyway, so the native vote. So we're gonna get to the native vote, a strategy for colonial domination. So last time we talked about how this actually dives into some history, and so we're gonna dive into that history, into how basically this actually not only suppresses the Native American vote, but it also helps fuel the eradication of the Native American people as a whole. And that's something that you should be very concerned about. That's something you should be very concerned about, my friend, is the I mean, like, and here's the thing, right? What do you think Native American people would vote for? What do you think they would vote for? Right? Let's talk about that. Because when white people vote for things, white people, I'm talking about white people in general, right? White people are pretty split. They're pretty split, and I'm talking about even like a leftist liberal and far right conservative here, right? White people typically vote in two camps, right? They usually vote in like social issues that are either reformist, or they vote in terms of in terms of property rights and maintaining policies and things like that. Which basically, and we all know what those policies are. Those policies are racially fueled. So, and they basically help the police, and they basically help the capitalists and things like that. So, what do you think a Native American would want to vote for? Well, a Native American would want to vote in things like environmental laws, things like human rights laws, things like laws that benefit the people, things that gut the economy of basically tax breaks for the rich, things like that, and essentially socialist leaning, for lack of a better term, policies and things like that. And if that's hypothetical, if a Native American were to actually participate in the voting process. The reality is, however, is that the Native American can't fucking vote because the Native American isn't an actual goddamn citizen. Are you fucking kidding me? Because the Native American is not a fucking citizen unless they fucking go through the process and actually surrender their fucking nationhood. Like, that's the fucking reality of it, my friend. Like, seriously. Holy shit. Okay, so, let's read this, and... Alright, and I'm just gonna bring this up real quick. Like, if you want to know a little bit about my ancestral, history, I'm not gonna try to pull an Elizabeth Warren on you all and be like, oh, I'm 1% Native American and all that, but I do have a little bit of Native American blood within me. That Native American did buy some land, and he was a property owner at one point, and I don't necessarily have an analysis on that one way or another, but I will say that he definitely had basically a good life with basically my great grandmother, from what his journal entries were basically written down to be. So that's what I was told. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's a lie from my family. It could be a lie from my family, from what I know. Who knows? They could be lying. They honestly could be lying. Anyway, let's continue. Let's continue with the Native Vote, a strategy of colonial domination. Prior to settler colonial invasion, the indigenous peoples maintained diverse, complex cultural organizations that were fairly unrecognizable to European invaders. From its inception, the United States recognized that indigenous peoples comprise distinct sovereign nation. The projection of nation status was committed on the terms of the colonizers. I almost mispronounced that. Who needed political entities to treaty with primarily for war and economic purposes. As a result, social organizations of indigenous peoples faced extreme political manipulation, as matriarchal and two-spirited roles were either completely disregarded or outright attacked. The imperative of the United States settler colonial project has always been to undermine and destroy indigenous sovereignty. This is the insidious nature of settler colonialism. And that's why I'm trying to say that the United States is not something that you can reform. It is something that you have to abolish. It is a binary social structure that perpetuates a hierarchy against not only the people, but against society as a whole, against the global, what I would say, atmosphere as a whole, against the global. I'm trying to think of the other word I want to use. Is that the tip of my tongue? Is that the tip of my tongue? Is that the tip of my tongue? Apparatus. There we go. That's the word. Anyway, let's continue. In 1493, the Papal Bull Intercatera was issued by Pope Alexander VI to document. The document established the doctrine of discovery and was central to Spain's Christianing strategy to ensure exclusive right to enslave indigenous peoples and lands invaded by Columbus the year prior. This decree also made clear the Pope's threat to forcibly assimilate indigenous peoples to Catholicism in order to strengthen the Christian empire. This doctrine led to successive generational patterns of genocidal and ecocidal wars waged by European settlers, colonizers against indigenous lives, land, spirit, and the living world of all of our relations. In 1823, the doctrine of discovery was written into U.S. law. My apologies, I'm losing my place again. I'm having severe ADHD. Let me see. The doctrine of discovery was written into U.S. law as a way to deny the land rights to indigenous peoples in the court cases. Johnson versus McIntosh. In a unanimous decision, Chief Justice John Marshall wrote that Christian European nations had assumed complete control over the land of America during the Age of Discovery, and in declaring independence from the Crown of England in 1776, he noted that the United States had in effect, and thus by law, inherited authority over these lands from Great Britain, quote, notwithstanding the occupancy of the natives who are heathens. Oh God. According to the rulings, indigenous peoples did not have any rights as independent nations, but only as tenants or residents of the U.S. on their own lands. To this day, the doctrine of discovery has not been repudiated, and Johnson versus McIntosh has not been overruled. You want to talk about reform? Reform that bill. Reform that treaty. Reform that shit right there. Reform the motherfucking ever-living shit of that right there. Reform the doctrine of discovery into nothing. Get rid of that shit right there. You want Joe Biden to do something about that, about anything? Get rid of that. Because Joe Biden doesn't have the fucking balls to do it. I promise you that. Joe Biden has no fucking balls. Joe Biden got no balls. He got no balls. Straight up. The genealogy of the native vote is tied to boarding schools, Christian indoctrination, allotment programs, and global wars that established U.S. imperialism. U.S. assimilation policies were not designed as a benevolent form of harm reduction, but were an extension of a military strategy that could not fulfill its genocidal program. Citizenship was forced onto indigenous peoples as a part of colonial strategy to, quote, kill the Indian and save the man. Speaking of no balls, you know what Obama had no balls in doing? Obama's presidency, and we just watched the music video of Miracle Doll where they mentioned in the music video Dapple, you know, no hashtag no Dapple. If everyone in the watching this remembers the Dakota Access Pipeline and the resistance towards that, Obama, in particular, had no balls, to resist against that and to try to stop that. In fact, actually, he fucking stood by, and he was like, well, I don't know, I mean, these people are fucking resisting, these people, like the fucking police and everything like that. You know, there's nothing much we can really do about it, because, I don't know, there's not much we can fucking do, because I'm just here, you know, and Congress is here and fucking telling me not to do anything about it. And, you know, I got my hands tied. I don't know. And then when Donald Trump came in, he's like, I'm going to sign in this bill. And this bill is going to basically have the police give full permission to basically have the guns pointed directly at the water protectors. And they're going to drive the peaceful protesters out. I'm Donald Trump. I'm the Fuhrer. Hail Hitler, 1488, that's me, Donald Trump, you know, anyway. So, the point that I'm trying to make here is that, Donald Trump, Donald Trump is the Fuhrer here, like I said, and, while that is true, basically, Vice President, you know, Joe Biden had no balls to stop, you know, basically the Dakota Access Pipeline while he was the fucking vice president. You know what I'm saying? And if he had no balls to fucking stop the Dakota Access Pipeline while he was the vice president, which, by the way, I must tell you right now, if you don't give a shit about indigenous issues, it's a fucking ecological issue to you. It's a fucking ecological issue to you. Because the Dakota Access Pipeline leaked about I don't know how many times, actually. I'll be honest with you about that. But it's leaked multiple times since the construction of it. And it's gone into the river since its construction. You should be ashamed that you actually fucking didn't do shit about it. In fact, I will go as far as to say you, in particular, you actually shamed the people who were up in the Dakota, who were up in Standing Rock, and were telling them that they were being too militant. You were telling them that they were being too fucking militant, that they were LARPing. I will go as far as that. All you fucking liberals. You fucking liberals are horrible fucking people sometimes, I swear to God. I mean, I love you guys. I don't think you guys are fascists. But like I said previously, you guys are the perpetuation of fascism. That is my honest goddamn opinion. It's that you guys are the perpetuation of fascism, and this is a clear goddamn example of that. Anyway, I'm sorry I got heated. I got a little emotional, and I don't know. Anyway, let's continue reading, yeah? Anyway, hello, how you doing? How you doing? Welcome to the chat. Let's continue reading. Oh, man. Okay. There was a time when indigenous peoples wanted nothing to do with U.S. citizenship and voting. Very interesting. Catherine Osborne, an ethno-historian at Arizona State University, states, quote, indigenous polities, I guess that's the word, holds a government-to-government relationship with the United States. Thus, their political status is unique, and that means that they are not just another minority group hoping for inclusion in the United States political order. For indigenous communities, protecting their sovereignty as tribal nations is as paramount political concern. When the United States Constitution was initially created, each state could determine who could be a citizen at their discretion. Some states rarely granted citizenship and thereby conferred the status to select indigenous peoples, but only if they dissolve their tribal relationships and become, quote, civilized. That's exactly what I was mentioning earlier in this discussion. This typically meant that they renounced their tribal affiliation, paid taxes, and fully assimilated with white society. Alexandra Whitkin writes in To Silence a Drum, the imposition of the United States citizenship on Native American people, or Native peoples, quote, early citizenship policies rested upon the assumption that allegiance could only be given to one nation. Thus, peoples with an allegiance to a native nation could not become citizens of the United States. The preference, though, was not to respect and uphold indigenous sovereignty, but to condemn it as uncivilized. And undetermine it through extreme tactics of forced assimilation. So, excuse me. So, I mean, like, when we look at the voting ballot and you're supposed to, I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I look at the voting ballot and I write in my race, right? There's actually one option that I check, and it's not white or Caucasian. It's I choose not to answer, and it's specifically because I choose not to participate in this racist fucking system, which is literally that. And I highly encourage anyone else to do the same if they're gonna vote. I mean, really. And again, like, and hello, Mr. Red, how you doing? Good to see you. Anyway, so, and it's like, if you're gonna vote at all, for that matter, I mean, I highly recommend doing that, because, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, maybe it's meaningless, but it definitely shows that you have control of some form over whether or not, like, basically, there is, like, jurisdiction within, or redlining for that matter, you know? And maybe there will be, maybe even eventually, there will be a large number of people that will be selecting that, you know? Just like how there's been a large number of people selecting fictional characters on the ballot recently. But what I'm trying to say here is that, and I'm gonna go back. Oh, hold on. What happened here? Okay, good. What I'm trying to say here is that, the when a Native American registers to vote, if they register to vote, if they're able to register to vote, because they're likely not registered to vote, or they're likely not a citizen, for that matter, right? They basically can't put in their tribe. They can't put in their nation. They can't put in who they are. They can't explain who they are. So they have to describe their myopic, their checkbox to recognize by the United States government. Can you imagine how fucking sad that is? And in addition to that, can you imagine how fucking sad it is that how fucking sad it is that whiteness is basically a preferred it's basically a preferred voting option in the ballot. It's very fucking sad, and it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable by any stretch of the word. In fact, I'm coughing because I'm kind of raising my voice a little bit, and I'm getting a little excited. But I'm good. I am good. Don't worry about me. I should be fine. Let's continue. When the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution was ratified in 1868, it granted citizenship to the men born or naturalized in the United States. This included former slaves, but was interpreted to not imply indigenous peoples, except those who assimilated and paid taxes. The 15th Amendment was subsequently passed in 1870 to ensure rights to U.S. citizens to vote without discrimination of, quote, race, color, or previous conditions of servitude, but a condition imposed upon indigenous people facing scorched earth military campaign and the threat of mass death marches to concentration camps. A clear message was, the message was clear: assimilate or perish. I mean, I don't think I need a comment there. It's just, Jesus fucking Christ. In 1887, the United States Congress passed the General Allotment Act, more commonly known as the Dawes Act. It was designed to expedite colonial invasion, facilitate resource extraction, and to further assimilate indigenous peoples to the colonial social order. The Dawes Act marked a shift from a military tactic to an economic and political one, where reservations were separated into individual lots, which with only one male head of households to receive 160 acres, with any remaining land put up for sale to white invaders to flock in drove to inherit their manifest destiny. Indigenous peoples who accepted allotment could receive U.S. citizenship. And although this was the first congressional act to provide the status, it became at the expense of sacrificing indigenous peoples' cultural and political identity in many ways. By further fracturing the integrity of indigenous matriarchal societies. Under the Dawes Act, indigenous lands were reduced to from 138 million to 52 million acres. In 1890, overall indigenous population was reduced to 250,000 from tens of millions at the time of the initial European invasion. God damn! Talk about a fucking Holocaust, guys! In contrast, the colonizers' United States population has increased by 62,622,250 the same year. I'm sorry, I gotta get some water. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I'll try to be quick. Okay, I'm coming back. Hold on. Okay. Okay, I am back. Backity black. Backity back. Back in the back. I'm back in black. I hit the sack. I don't know what the song goes. But it is outrageous, you're right. You know, it's like, even the numbers, like, it's like every time you hear about the numbers, it's like, it's very fucking outrageous. Like, it's very fucking outrageous, you know, like, it's like, you don't normally hear about it, you know, and it's like, and I mean, you don't normally hear about it, and when you do, it blows your fucking mind that, like, people talk about the Holocaust, the Nazi Holocaust, which is a genuine travesty on its own, based on the European Empire, of the German Empire for that matter, the Nazi Empire. But you got to remember that the Nazi Empire was literally inspired by the United States Empire as basically Hitler cited in Mein Kampf. So it's like, it's no surprise really. And this is why every time I go into a Barnes & Noble, I specifically look for Mein Kampf, and then I fucking tear it up, and then I leave the store, like, intentionally, as praxis. And by the way, I don't know, like, maybe it's dangerous to fucking tell you guys to do the same thing, but fucking do it. So, I don't know. Yeah, do it, guys. Fucking destroy Mein Kampf. It's not bad. Because Mein Kampf doesn't deserve to be fucking sold in Barnes and Noble, okay? Fucking, it's bad. It's a bad book. It's garbage. Anyway, yeah, and any Holocaust denial in chat is immediately gonna get banned. Mr. Red is gonna fucking take care of that for me. Thank you. Next time, burn the book too. I don't know if starting a fire in Barnes and Noble is a good idea, but I mean, I don't know if that's a good idea. But I mean, that would require me. I don't want to burn the building down. I mean, like that would require burning people down. I don't like that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. It's not literature. It's rubbish. It's garbage. I just want to basically rip the book up. That's the point. Because like, Mein Kampf is just a bad fucking book. That's all I want to do. It's just rip it up. I think that's the most effective. Or vandalize it. Take a Sharpie, and scribble in it. That's a better way to do it. Make it unsellable, and like, just make it unsellable. Or when they do buy it, you know, they'll find scribble in it, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, there's so much scribble in here. I have to take it back and, you know, get a new copy or something like that." I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I'm thinking outside of the box. Okay, let's get back to the literature. We got a little bit more. We're doing good. Okay, where were we? I think we're halfway through. Shit, hold on. I'm having a hard time finding my spot. Fuck. Assimilate or perish. There it is. Okay, the legal destruction of the indigenous sovereign nations was fulfilled in Supreme Court decision by Judge Marshall, who in 1831 wrote that in 1831 that the Cherokee Nation was not a foreign nation, but rather that they may more correctly perhaps be denominated domestic dependent nations. Their relationship to the United States resembles that they of a ward to its guardian. Wow. So, that's what I mean, my friend. Like, it's... Voting literally means, if anything, like, if you can't even vote, it makes you... I mean, like think about it. It's not even just Native Americans. It's like, you gotta even think about Puerto Ricans who can't even vote, right? Puerto Ricans who can't vote are basically under these same conditions. And think about what Puerto Ricans have to deal with within the last 5 to 10 years. You know, hurricane after hurricane after hurricane after hurricane. And they have had absolutely no fucking help from the U.S. government. No help from the U.S. government. Donald Trump has been a fucking douchebag to every single incident. Every single incident of necessary need for help. And so is Obama, really. And why why should we? Why honestly should we? Why honestly should we, like, how do I put this? Why do we? Why do we really care? Why do we really have faith in this system? Like, why do we have faith in this fucking system if it's not gonna fucking help us? This is why we need to basically work based on mutual aid. This is what I'm trying to do here. Like, people are always saying, aid FEMA, you know, like, FEMA doesn't fucking work for shit. Remember fucking Hurricane Katrina? FEMA was so fucking late on that shit, you know, like, that fucking mutual aid pods were immediately involved in that shit. And then every other hurricane after that in New Orleans, you know, basically mutual aid pods were involved in that immediately after. This is what I'm talking about, my friend. Direct action, not electoralism. This is what I'm talking about. And I don't understand why people are putting their activism towards voting when it really isn't necessary. There's a group of people that I really like a lot, and they're called Refuse Fascism. I really like them a lot, like, to an extent. There are things I don't like about them. There's things I do like about them. One thing I do like about them, I'll give them some credit, is that they really, really, really drive home the points of anti-fascist ideology, and they do it in a way that's very accessible to the masses. And they do it everywhere. Like, every fucking where in major cities. Like, they do it in LA, they do it in New York City, they do it in Atlanta, they do it everywhere. And especially in poor neighborhoods. Here's the thing, they advocate for electoralism, especially during the elections. They did it with Hillary Clinton, they did it with Obama, and they're doing it again with Joe Biden. And I really honestly think, not that I think that by definition that each of these people are fascists. By definition, each of these people are neoliberals, right? And by definition, each of these people being neoliberals is not a justified alternative to fascism. And I think we can all agree on that. Neoliberalism, I think a lot of people, by the way, including Xander Hall, by the way, let's just face it here. Xander Hall, hold on, let me pull this up. Let me see. Do I have, is this it? Xander Hall, there we go. Let me hide the Kiki one. The Kiki. Wait, hold on. I'm trying to find the Kiki. What is the Kiki? Fuck. Okay. There. Okay. Xander Hall, I don't think Xander Hall knows what neoliberalism is. Xander Hall doesn't know what neoliberalism is, therefore, he chose neoliberalism over fascism. Neoliberalism is not classic, it's not, okay, first of all, neoliberalism and classical liberalism is not liberal politics in democracy, okay? It has nothing to do with each other. They literally have nothing to do with each other, okay? Neoliberalism is basically the idea that basically major corporations... Okay, I'm sorry I'm hiding Kiki. I will put her back. I'm sorry. Okay, I just needed to show that Xander Hall... I just needed to show the Xander Hall tweet. Anyway... Neoliberalism is basically the concept that, like, major corporations, if you will, are basically, like, own basically all of the basic policies and control the basic policies over the government. And so an example of neoliberalism would be the Trans-Pacific Partnership or NAFTA treaty. You know, neoliberalism. I mean, like, you can, yeah. And Mr. Red, you're right. Neoliberalism can be, in a sense, fascism in some degree. It is authoritarian. I wouldn't necessarily call it nationalistic. I wouldn't necessarily call it far right. In hindsight, neoliberalism can be cloaked in it can be cloaked in leftist ideas. Like, for example, you can basically put Black Lives Matter on it. You can put gay rights on it. You can put trans rights on it. But neoliberalism is still, at the end of the day, basically, Shell Oil Company going into Bolivia and overriding their environmental laws just to drill for oil. Or basically, Jair Bolsonaro, for the most part, fucking burning down the Amazon River, not the Amazon River, the Amazon forest, just to be able to plant farms all over what was then the Amazon, to be able to make a profit. That's basically, in a nutshell, what neoliberalism is. It's basically corporations overriding corporate government rule and seeking to make a profit over what the people want. That's basically what neoliberalism is. I highly recommend watching Step Back History's video on neoliberalism. I highly recommend watching Non-Compete's video on neoliberalism. I highly recommend, if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken, I think even PhilosophyTube did a video on neoliberalism, but I could be wrong. I might be wrong on that one. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, let's see. There we go. Anyway, so let's continue. yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna really say anything about Xander Hall, in terms of like being insulting. I just like Mr. Ed. You can say what you want. I just feel like Xander Hall just doesn't know what neoliberalism is, and like, if he wants to vote for Joe Biden based on neoliberal policies, that's fine. But I'll explain it this way. I can understand why someone would be duped into like voting for Joe Biden based on harm reduction, but this is why I'm making the stream, right? That's why I'm making the stream, to kind of explain why harm reduction isn't the answer to this problem here. Because it honestly doesn't give that solution. It honestly just it doesn't give that solution. It harms people. It actually harms people. It gives like a Stockholm syndrome dynamic to people. To the people, And that's why we need to work in a way to think critically about abolishing the state rather than reforming the state. That's what I'm trying to get people to think about critically here. So anyway, so let's continue. The U.S. genocidal military campaigns, known collectively as the Indian Wars, supposedly to an end in supposedly came to an end in 1924. That same year, U.S. Congress passed the Indian Citizenship Act, ICA, which granted citizenship to Indian peoples, but still determine if they could vote. As a peoples from voting until 1957. Until passage of the ICA, it was a regulatory action approved with no hearings. Indigenous peoples were considered domestic subjects of the U.S. government. Wow. Domestic subjects. That sounds very similar to domestic terrorist. You know, can you imagine like being seen as a domestic subject? You know, to a government that like that invaded your that invaded you, that invaded your life, that invaded your society. What the fuck? Seriously. Holy guacamole. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna try to pronounce this. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy. I don't know if that's a Confederate thing or if that's just a Confederacy. Who knows? But we'll see. Completely rejected imposition of U.S. citizenship through the IAC and called it an act of treason. Joseph Heath, General Counsel of the Onondaga, there we go, I got it, Nation, writes, the Onondaga Nation, Haudenosaunee have never accepted the authority of the United States to make the Six Nations citizens, because citizens of the United States, as claimed by the Citizenship Act of 1924, we hold 3 treaties with the United States. The 1784 Treaty of Fort Stanwix, the 1789 Treaty of Fort Harmor, and the 1794 Treaty of Canandaigua. These treaties clearly recognize that the Haudenosaunee as separated and sovereign nations accepting United States citizenship would be treason on their own nation, a violation of the treaties, and a violation of international law. 2 comments real quick. One, that really it's important to note that we're really it's really sad to see, I mean, it's really sad to see that, like, reform really can be disguised as basically it can be disguised as like literally like overriding and ignoring and even like overshadowing other people's basic civil rights, and that was just a clear-cut example of it. And another thing, and which is the second thing I want to bring up, me not being able to pronounce these people's names, these nations' names, is a clear example of the fact that the U.S. Empire is erasing these people's languages. Straight up. So it is a fault of mine. Admittedly, it is a very clear-cut fault of mine, admittedly, as a settler colonist of mine. But I want to stress that it is not just a clear-cut fault of mine, but it is also a clear-cut fault of the United States Empire as a whole. So I want to make that very clear and be very transparent of that. Rejecting the ICA and resisted, and by the way, I just want to let you know, this part where it says assimilated the strategy of enfranchisement at the bottom, we're gonna stop there, and we're gonna continue tomorrow at that part. we're gonna read this entire article. It's just we're gonna do it in parts. I just decided that basically yesterday. So anyway, they rejected the ICA and resisted its implementation immediately after its adoption because they had the historical and cultural understanding that it was merely the latest federal policy aimed at taking their lands and forced assimilation. Heath further adds, quote, for over 4 centuries, the Haudenosaunee, I think that's how you pronounce it actually, the Haudenosaunee have maintained their sovereignty against the onslaught of colonialism and assimilation, and have continued with their duties as stewards of the natural world. They have resisted removal of an allotment, have rejected forced citizenship. It is important to note, and paradoxical, that the colonizing architects of the United States Constitution were influenced heavily by the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Is it spelled differently that time? I think it is, actually. It actually is. Okay, it kind of threw me off that time. I guess it must be spelled differently. I don't know. Either it's a typo, or it's it's just spelled differently for some reason. Again, this is a testimony to the fact that their language is being erased, basically. Or I just don't know who they are. I'll have to look into them. In fact, actually, fuck it. Let's Google them real quick. I'm actually very curious. Let's do a quick Google. Iroquois. Okay, makes perfect sense. They are Iroquois. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I knew they were someone indigenous. Okay, see this, I know, I'm smart. Anyway, Jane Gordon. That's an interesting name. Of the Wayne of the Wyandotte. Sorry, Wyandotte Nation critiqued the ICA at the same time it was passed. No government organized can be incorporated into its citizenship. Anybody or bodies without their formal consent. The Indians are organized in their form of nations. It has treaties with other nations as such. Congress cannot embrace them into the citizenship of the Union by a simple act. In challenging American boundaries, indigenous peoples, and the gift of the U.S. citizenship, Kevin Braiuli Bayulil writes that Tuskar Royal. I'm sorry. I'm really bad at these names. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible at these names. Chief Clinton Ricard, who strongly imposed a passage of the ICA, was also encouraged by the fact that there was no great rush among my people to go out and vote in white man's election, Ricard stated. By ancient treaties, we expected the protection of the government. The white man had obtained most of our land, and we felt that he was obliged to provide something in return, which was protection of the land that we have left. But we did not want to be absorbed and assimilated into his society. United States citizenship was just another way of absorbing us and destroying our customs and our government. We feared citizenship would also put our treaty status in jeopardy and bring taxes upon our land. How can a citizen have a treaty of his own government? This is a violation of our sovereignty. Our citizenship was in our own nation. You know what I'm noticing recently? A lot of indigenous people are starting to become anarchists. I'm serious, like straight up. A lot of people that are indigenous, are starting to, straight up, lie within anarchist thought, and it's really cool. I'm really digging it. Even socialist thought too, but specifically anarchist thought. And for example, recently, there is an Instagram account that I follow called the Indigenous Anarchist, and basically they have been pushing a message that I really like, and it's called Mutual Aid, Not Charity. Or it's actually, in addition to that, the alternative, Solidarity, Not Charity. And I think it's really cool because they explain the idea of it by saying that charity is a government-stated, it's a government-funded entity where you basically donate to the government, and the government handles your donations, and it basically regulates whether or not it goes to the right people. Whereas mutual aid, you basically give it directly to the people that need it the most. So I think honestly, you should one, follow the Indigenous Anarchists on Instagram. They're really good. I think they're really good. They have a lot of really good essays on Instagram too that you should read. Really good essays. Really fucking great essays. They're really short, and they're really easy to read. Easier than this one, actually. Really accessible. And also, they just overall, are just wonderful people. I highly recommend just following them. And then also, secondly, practice mutual aid instead of charity. Practice solidarity instead of charity. Next time you see someone, doing a charity fund, question whether or not, that charity is, a charity that is worth going to. For example, is the charity like, the American Cancer Society, or which is cancer is bad, yes, but the American Cancer Society is known to be notorious for stealing donations. But if you were to say donate to like another cancer society, or another one that was more directly going towards more like cancer research, instead of actually like I actually can't give you one, I'm sorry, but also there's also like actually I can give you another example of a not necessarily a charity, but of a cause. There's also one called Camp Unicorn for trans people. Trans people are actually looking to build a treatment center for trans people in Maine right now. So you could definitely donate to that cause right now. But yes, be an accomplice, not an ally. So yes, and yes, by the way, I do want to mention, do look into, if you're going to donate to cancer research, look into what people are actually doing cancer research, first of all, and secondly, and more importantly, you also have to question whether or not, like, once the cancer research is out, and once they find a cure for cancer, whether or not they're going to be giving it to people that actually need it, like, poor people, that people that can't afford it. That's something you need to consider. Anyway, we have like 4 paragraphs left, and I think we're basically done. So we'll be wrapping it up in like 1 hour and a half. Let's do this. Howden Sen Shuni, I'm trying my best here, guys, also voiced opposition to the imposition of United States citizenship policies due to separation of their nation by the Canadian border. These impacts are still faced by Indigenous peoples whose lands are bisected by Canadian and Mexican borders. These impositions of citizenships have been politically segregated their people along colonial lines. Perhaps one of the clearest illustrations of assimilationist strategies regarding citizenship and voting comes to mind from Henry F. Pancoast, one of the founders of the Christian white supremacist group, the Indian Rights Association, the IRA. Oh, interesting. I actually, wait, hold on. Oh, wait, whoa, hold on, wait. I'm sorry. I read that. That's a weird sentence. The Christian white supremacist group, the Indian Rights Association, IRA. Hold on. I'm confused. Wait. Can we Google that real quick? I'm so confused. Indian Rights Association is a Christian white supremacist group, and they're called the IRA. I'm so confused. The Indian Rights Association was a white social activist group dedicated to the well-being and culture of American Indians. What? What? Hold on. What the fuck? This is one of the weirdest things I've ever read. What the fuck? Wow. Talk about, I don't know, that's like, I don't know how to feel about this. Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. They're a white supremacist group, though? Christian white supremacist group that... Wait, hold on. I'm so confused. I'm reading this. I mean, I get that they appropriated everything left and right. Oh, hold on. Hold on. I see here. The organization's initial stated objective was to bring about the complete civilization of Indians and their admission to citizenship. Oh, that makes sense. Okay. Holy shit, yeah, okay. Yep. Yeah, they are... Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Holy shit, that blew my mind for a second. I was just like, and why the fuck would they call themselves that? Jesus Christ. Wow. Damn. The more you know. Pankow stated, nothing besides the United States citizenship will be so tend to assimilate the Indian and break up his narrow tribal allegiance as making him feel that he has distinct right and voice in the white man's nation. Yeah, that is very white supremacist. Holy shit. Yeah. Yeah, the Irish Republicans, yeah, they would be so mad about this if they heard about this. Holy shit. Holy shit. That blew my fucking mind. Anyway, the IRA's initial stated objective was to, yeah, and we just read this, to bring about the complete civilization of Indians and their admission to citizenship. The IRA considered themselves reformists and successfully lobbied Congress to establish the boarding school system, passed the Dawes Act, reformed the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and passed the Indian Reorganization Act of 1834. U.S. citizenship was imposed to destroy Indian sovereignty and facilitate mass-scale land theft. To this day, the native vote is bound to assimilationist conditions that serve colonial interests. Holy guacamole, my friend. That is, And Revolution International. I will read about that after the stream. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you for telling me about that. I am interested in that. Holy shit. That is interesting. Holy shit. And so, we learned a lot today. So, we learned a lot, yeah. So, we had a good time, and I feel that we had a good talk, and, we're gonna come back again tomorrow. We're gonna do this again. We're gonna have, I think it's like, let me see how many more sections it is. Tomorrow we're going to do Assimilation, the Strategy of Enfranchisement. And then actually there's one more that says you can't decolonize a vote. And then there's another one that says reject settler authority, aka not voting. Which actually is like two small parts. So maybe I can actually combine the two. So we'll do like two more streams after this. So I think actually we can do this. We can do 2 more streams after this, and we'll make it like a small series. So yeah, that sounds jolly. Well, that sounds like a jolly old good time to me. Anyway, I'm Skylar Sabo. I really, oh, and hold on, I will read your comment real quick. Okay, I'll bring this up. The Zapatistas want to be a part of the Mexican state. Read about it, the CNI, and specifically because people who support them are usually against the existence of the Mexican state, myself included. That is interesting because, aren't they indigenous? Like, aren't they indigenous Mexicans? Or aren't they, wouldn't they, like, aren't they, I'm sorry, not indigenous Mexicans, that's not the word. Aren't they indigenous, Chiapas? That's the word. They're Chiapas. So, like, wouldn't they, and it's just, I don't know why I don't understand why they want to join the Mexican state. Like, I'm gonna have to maybe I'll do a stream about it one day. Maybe relatively soon. Zapatistas tolerate Mexican state because it is there. I don't know. That's pretty bad. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to make this about the Zapatistas right now. I want to keep this relevant to the stream. But we can make the Zapatistas its own stream another day. I promise you. Abolishing the state is not their aim. I understand. I promise you, we will do a stream about the Zapatistas. I will make it my goal. In fact, I'm putting it in my notes right now. Stream ideas. Zapatistas in Mexican state. There, I literally just did it. I promise, I did it. So, have a great day, everyone. I love you all, and I appreciate you all not only hanging out with us all, but I also appreciate you all engaging and also participating. And for all those who disagree with me, I appreciate you all critically thinking. I also appreciate you all, basically engaging with me. Like engaging with me in a way that is, very constructive. Actually, the people who have disagreed with me are not assholes. I promise you that. Like, they're not assholes in the slightest. They're not trolls. They're really good people, and I really appreciate it. Like, I sincerely appreciate everyone who has been engaging with me within the last few days. Thank you all so much for being there with me. And also, for anyone who is wondering, the tacos are good now. Like, I'm good with the tacos. The tacos are fine. The tacos have